Rafizi, you've become the poster boy for a kind of politics. Some analysts call it exposé politics, and you came to prominence with the National Feedlot Corporation scandal that brought down a cabinet minister. How did you come to play that role? I mean, was it something the party chose for you, or is it something you chose for yourself?
No, I think the whole thing was unintended. It just so happened that I got a call. And I've been preparing Anwar's speeches in Parliament for quite a while, and he has been talking about NFC for quite a while. So when it was featured in the Auditor General's report, I was actually asked to go down and count the cows, literally. So we went down, and I think it started from there because the more we dig in, their response was just utterly out of this world. So the more we dig, and that's where you discover.
Right, but what I mean is just in your position, because you became the kind of point person for it. You became the face of that controversy. You were the one who was, the media went to.
Yeah.
Was that a concerted or kind of systematic strategy to kind of promote you as well?
No, the way we work in PKR was that we were given briefs. So, NFC was my brief, and it's pretty much up to you how to develop your storyline. It just so happens, perhaps I was a bit more persistent, and in the case of NFC, it's because the scandal was much, much more scandalous than the others. So there were a lot more to it than what other people had to deal with. So I think along the way, we developed quite close relationship with the reporters, and there was a lot of interest into it. So I think it's if NFC was given to any other persons in PKR, it would have been the same thing.
Right. So it wasn't about promoting you as a rising star within the party.
No.
But are you a rising star within the party?
I don't think so. I mean, I've maintained all along that I'm a technocrat, accidentally in politics. I've made it very clear to everyone in and outside the party that I retain the right to decide what to do after we've accomplished to get rid of the end, because that's the shared objective, which is to change the government. After that, I have not decided. I mean, of course.
I mean, would you withdraw? Would you say, okay, I've had enough of politics. I now want to go back to the corporate life. Now that we've captured Putrajaya, my job is done.
It's slightly trickier now because, of course, I have to stand in the election. But whether I want to play continuously a leading role, I think that's something that I have to decide personally with the family.
What is it what are the considerations? You said family. What else are the considerations? Is politics tiring?
Politics is tiring, and I wasn't prepared for it. I mean, I came in more like a policymaker for the state of Selangor. But along the way, accidentally, I was with the party from the very beginning, but I never intended to be in the front line. I was more comfortable giving advices and ideas. So I haven't really decided whether that's what I wanted to do for the next 10, 15 years.
Okay, speaking of advice, you were the chief executive of the Selangor Economic Advisory Office. Now, you pulled out of that in a rather spectacular fashion. This was not a simple handing over, So whatever demurring, oh no, this is just, me. And in fact, you are quoted saying you were tired of juggling this job, the job as advisor, and party work. Were you being completely honest when you said that?
You see, that's the problem with politics in Malaysia. You can't be honest because people don't actually buy it. I mean, as I said, I came on board of Selangor government as a policymaker, as a civil servant. And along the way when I had to take a party position, number one is a question of juggling because it was tiring. I have to travel every night for ceramah, come back around 3, and then by 8 or 9 you have to be in office. So physically it was exhausting. But I also dislike this notion that you get a government position because of party position. I was uncomfortable with it the moment I held the party position in, I think, October 2010. So I voiced out to Tan Sri Khalid and Datuk Sri Anwar that I wanted my contract, once it ended, I don't want to renew it. I mean, of course, there was a request that we had to wait until March 2012 for election. It didn't happen. So I thought that.
But why wasn't it done with much more, why wasn't a successor brought in? Why wasn't it a sense that this was just a regular feature of, changing administrators? Why did it sound like there was something in the air that you were either in Azmin's camp or you were in, in the chief minister's camp, the Menteri Besar's camp? What was it?
No, I think there is a question mark whether that office will continue after the election, because the office was set up primarily for Datuk Sri Anwar's position in Selangor as Selangor Economic Advisor. He needed somebody to look after the day-to-day affairs. I mean, with the election, and there is a slight chance that we may go to Putrajaya. And the whole setup of Selangor government may change after this. To bring somebody new to that position and transition, I think this close to election, I think that's not necessary. Hence, why we don't have a successor, so to speak. I'm in neither camp, in fact.
But there are camps.
I think you are right to say there are camps.
I mean, there's been a lot of speculation, and I would imagine that in any kind of political situation, any country, there are camps and parties. Right? But what do these camps stand for? So much of the media speculation just seems to hang it on personalities. Is it a personality issue?
I don't think so. I don't think it's personality at all. The central question to PKR's running of Selangor is the relationship between the state government and the party. You have on one end Tan Sri Khalid, who's quite adamant that the state is separate from the party. But of course, you have people in the party, which includes me, which we think that there must be some level of input and feedback. And if there needs to be reprimand from the party, because after all, we are answerable to the public, this has to be feedback to the state. So I think it revolves around that, because there's a very fine line between a healthy feedback and cooperation between the party and the state government, and what would have been considered or misconstrued in many ways as interference, and to the other extreme, people think that the party wants to benefit from the state government. So I think it revolves around that. It's not at all personality. That's why you would see people like me being banded between one camp and another, because we decide based on issues. There are issues which I think the state government could have responded better. There are issues which I think that party should hands off from how the whole state is run.
Now, you have been, again, you came on the media, part of a political debate with Khairi Jamaluddin, and it was for me, a bewildering spectacle, because we both threw numbers at the audience. In fact, there was so much number crunching going on that unless you had a calculator, I don't think you'd be able to understand it. And it seemed to me at some point, there was a lack of discussions of more kind of like first principle issues. What exactly should be the kind of philosophical outlook of each of the parties in terms of these things? Do you think both parties, both sides of the divide rather, in many ways are similar, that they're both playing a similar populist politics, and which in many ways ends up being in handouts to people, or making it life easier for the ordinary Malaysian? Is that what politics is about?
I disagree a bit. I think we can't fault the general public if the impression is populist politics on both sides. But whatever we have come out or promised or announced so far, they may appear to be populist, but they have strong economic fundamentals and impacts that we need to push. I'll give you, for example, cars that we are pushing now. It's not so much because it's popular, but it's because taxing people for 7 billions begin to have an impact on domestic consumption, on household debts, and so on. Likewise, there are many other things, for example, to phase out tolls, because it has started to become an added transportation cost. And if you compare how much the government is paying to the concessionaires, it's actually cheaper if the government runs it ourselves, because we pay compensation to the tune of 6 billion each year. So the main difference is that I think what Pakatan is offering is that there are ways that you can score both. There are immediate economic concerns of the public that we have to address while other structural reforms take place, but you must make sure that these promises made actually have immediate economic impacts on the ground, compared to, I think, what BN is doing. That's a pure throw out of money, because it will just perpetuate more handouts without really addressing either the immediate economic concerns nor the structural problems.
But one of the things that seems to happen, I think, is when government tries to explain policy, it actually, I mean, with the Barisan National Government, when I remember they invested a lot in a campaign to explain subsidies for petrol and the withdrawal of the subsidies. It didn't seem to jive with a lot of people. It didn't resonate, and people were resistant to that. Do you think, being a politician now for a couple of years and dealing with ordinary Malaysians, do you think they have the vocabulary or the frameworks to understand these types of quite complex policy issues, and that are being negotiated by parties and by policy formulators like yourself?
They do. In fact, I think most of the time I was very impressed and shocked because we go on ceramah circuits and you go to the remotest places in the country, you'll be surprised of how educated, so to speak, or the level of understanding of even rural folks, kampung folks. So I don't think it's a question of complexity or understanding with the public. I think what BN suffers now, or any government for that matter in BN shoes, is that there is a credibility problem. You can't be saying one thing when the public thinks that you are doing other things that completely contradicts your policy. If you say that you want to withdraw a subsidy because it's necessary to cut spending, but you can't be going around with huge One Malaysia campaign and all the galore. That actually creates resentment. So I think it's more of a question of trust in the current government, not really complexity of issues. And again, if we were to look at cars, the excise duties, it's actually quite a complex technical details. The fact that we have 3 tiers, 3 different types of taxes on our cars, but if you go around, people understand it almost instantaneously. So I would not underestimate the level of understanding of the public.
Okay. Very briefly, last question. You are going to be, or reported to be, going to be standing up against MCA's Ong Tee Keat in Pandan. What are you going to be saying to your constituents or the people who are going to vote for you? What are you going to be saying to them in terms of your contribution to national politics?
I think this contest, the next general election, is going to be very close. Either party, if we were to win, it's by a margin of 4, 5 seats. So every single seat counts. To continue supporting Ong Tee Keat, and we acknowledge his track record and how he has served his constituency, but I think the constituents would have to appreciate, by voting Ong Tee Keat, that means they will prolong the life of the current regime and that will impede change. So I think the choice that I have to offer to people in Pandan is that you can stick with Ong Tee Keat and the old regime, or you can vote for hope and change. And I think once the message is out, it's no longer about me or Ong Tee Keat. It's going to be about Barisan and Pakatan. And that's, I think, more important, especially to the younger voters.
Thank you very much.
All right, sure. All right.